The orchestral music echoed through the halls of the Harrison estate, like a cruel reminder of everything Ryan had lost. He watched the couples glide across the Italian marble floor, their bodies entwined in perfect waltzes, while he remained motionless in his wheelchair, tucked away by the burgundy velvet curtains that framed the enormous windows overlooking the ocean. 200 people, 200 guests from Newport's elite, circulated through the charity gala his family had hosted for 3 generations. But Ryan Harrison had never felt so alone. At 38, the heir to a real estate empire that dominated the New England coastline, he was surrounded by sycophants and opportunists, yet invisible to anyone who truly mattered. The woman in the navy blue dress, who had been chatting with him for the last 5 minutes, found a polite excuse as soon as she realized his legs didn't move. Ryan saw the spark of interest in her eyes extinguish, like a candle blown out by the wind. She murmured something about finding a friend and disappeared into the crowd, leaving only the scent of expensive perfume in the air. 14 months. It had been 14 months since the single-engine plane he was piloting had plummeted into a densely wooded area on its way to Martha's Vineyard. The doctors called his survival a miracle. Ryan called it a curse. The legs that had carried him through marathons, that had danced at parties all over the world, that had strode confidently through the halls of power, were now just dead weight. 2 useless companions attached to the rest of a body that still worked perfectly. The worst part wasn't waking up in the hospital to find out he would never walk again. The worst part was seeing Ashley, his fiancée, the woman who had sworn to love him under any circumstances, walk into his room with red-rimmed eyes 3 weeks after the accident and return the diamond ring. "I can't, Ryan. I tried, but I can't imagine my life like this. I'm sorry." She didn't even wait for a response. She simply left the ring on the nightstand and walked out, her heels echoing down the hallway like a final sentence. After her, there were others, women interested in the Harrison name, the fortune, the properties scattered along the coast. But they all had the same look of pity or discomfort when they noticed the wheelchair. One of them even said with brutal honesty that she wasn't prepared to be a nurse, as if loving someone in a wheelchair was an act of charity and not a choice. Ryan took a sip of the Scotch whiskey resting in his hand. The amber liquid burned his throat, but brought none of the comfort he sought. Around him, the Newport elite celebrated. Businessmen discussed deals, socialites showed off jewelry that would cost a family's salary for years, and everyone pretended the night was about charity when, in reality, it was just another opportunity to show off. He was about to ask his driver to take him home when he heard the sound, not the orchestra's music, but a laugh, crystal clear, pure, genuine. Ryan turned his head and saw a little girl crossing the main ballroom with the confidence of someone who owned the world. She couldn't have been more than 4, wearing a simple red dress that contrasted with the black tie attire around her, her copper-colored curls bouncing with each determined step. The child completely ignored the surprised looks from the guests. Her objective was clear. She was walking directly toward Ryan. His heart sped up, for reasons he couldn't explain. There was something in those bright brown eyes that made him simultaneously curious and afraid. The girl stopped in front of his chair, so small she had to tilt her head back to look into his eyes. "You're all alone in the corner," she said with the bluntness of a child. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Ryan blinked, unsure how to respond. Before he could find the words, she held out her chubby little hand toward him. "Want to dance with me?" The entire ballroom seemed to freeze. Conversations stopped. The orchestra kept playing, but Ryan could have sworn even the musicians had lowered the volume. Everyone was watching, waiting, judging. A woman came running from the back of the mansion, her work uniform giving away her position. Her eyes were wide with terror. "Helena! Oh my God, Helena, I'm so sorry, Mr. Harrison." Her voice trembled with fear. "I just left her alone for 1 second in the kitchen, I swear." She grabbed the girl by the arm, trying to pull her away. "I'm sorry, sweetie. I'm so sorry to bother the gentleman." "Wait." Ryan's voice came out firmer than he expected. The woman froze, her face pale. Ryan vaguely recognized her. Clara. She had worked at the estate for years, one of the most dedicated employees according to the head housekeeper. He had never paid much attention to her. To his shame, he had never paid attention to almost any of the staff. They were just part of the scenery, nameless faces who kept his life running behind the scenes. "She's not bothering me," Ryan said, surprising himself. He looked at the little girl, who still had her hand outstretched, waiting. "What's your name?" "Helena, same as my mum." The answer came proudly. "But she's Big Clara and I'm Little Helena." For the first time in 14 months, Ryan felt his lips curve into a real smile. It wasn't the polite, empty expression he used in business meetings. It was genuine. "Little Helena," he repeated. "You know I can't stand up to dance, right?" The girl looked at the wheelchair as if seeing it for the first time. She shrugged. "You don't have to stand up to dance. Dancing is just moving with the music." She wiggled her hips to demonstrate. "See, you can do that sitting down." Ryan looked at Clara, who was on the verge of tears, clearly torn between pride in her daughter and fear of losing her job. He saw his own reflection in her frightened eyes. A powerful, feared, distant man. When had he become someone people feared instead of respected? He reached out and took little Helena's hand. "You're right, let's dance." The shock on Clara's face mirrored the surprise of the 200 guests. Ryan propelled his wheelchair toward the center of the ballroom, the little girl skipping beside him, laughing. When they reached the open area between the dancing couples, Helena began to spin, her curls flying around her face. She wasn't following any choreography. She was just moving with pure, authentic joy. Ryan followed her movements with his chair, spinning, moving forward, pulling back. It wasn't a technical waltz. It was something much better. It was spontaneous, real. For the first time since the accident, he wasn't thinking about what he had lost. He was present in the moment. The girl laughed when he made the chair spin faster, her eyes shining with pure delight. And Ryan realized something extraordinary. She didn't see him as the broken man in a wheelchair. She just saw him as someone who could play with her, dance with her. When the music ended, the ballroom erupted in applause. But it wasn't the polite, mechanical applause of other charity events. It was genuine. Some women were wiping away tears. Hard-nosed businessmen looked touched. Helena took an exaggerated bow, and Ryan couldn't help but laugh. A real laugh that came from some deep place he thought he had buried along with his dreams of walking again. "Thank you for the dance, Mr. Ryan," the girl said, suddenly formal. "Thank you, little Helena." Clara approached again, this time with tears streaming down her face. I don't know what to say, sir. She's a handful, but she has a good heart, I swear." "She's perfect," Ryan interrupted her. And as he said those words, something inside him began to shift, like a seed planted in fertile soil. Absolutely perfect. He looked at the mother and daughter, really looked for the first time. Clara must have been around 28, with the same brown eyes as her daughter, but marked by the weariness of someone who works too hard. There was pride in her posture, despite the fear, and love. So much love when she looked at little Helena. Ryan realized he had spent 14 months drowning in self-pity, surrounded by luxury, but dying of loneliness. And all it took was a 4-year-old girl in a simple red dress to remind him of something fundamental. He was still alive, his heart was still beating, and maybe, just maybe, there was still hope. "Clara," he said, surprising the woman by using her name, "tomorrow, when your shift is over, I'd like to talk to you. About Helena, about both of you." The fear returned to her eyes. "I'm not going to fire you," Ryan assured her quickly. "Quite the opposite. I just want to talk, please." She nodded, still uncertain, and took her daughter's hand. "Come on, sweetie. We need to let the gentleman enjoy his party." "Bye, Mr. Ryan." Helena waved energetically. "Will you dance with me again?" "Whenever you want, little Helena." As mother and daughter disappeared toward the back of the mansion, Ryan remained in the center of the ballroom. The guests returned to their conversations and dancing, but something had irrevocably changed. For the first time since the accident, Ryan Harrison didn't feel like just a spectator in his own life. He felt that maybe, just maybe, he was ready to start living again. Ryan woke up the next day with a strange feeling in his chest. It took him a few seconds to identify it as hope. It had been so long since he'd felt it that he almost didn't recognize the emotion. The sun streamed through the windows of the master suite, illuminating the rosewood furniture and the ornate plaster ceiling. He ran a hand over his face and looked at the clock on the nightstand. 10 in the morning. He had slept soundly for the first time in months without the recurring nightmares of the crash. His morning routine was now automated, transferring from the bed to the wheelchair, navigating the accessible bathroom, dressing himself even when his shirts insisted on getting tangled around his shoulders. He had learned to do everything without help, refusing the assistance that physical therapists and nurses offered. It was a matter of pride, perhaps foolish, but important to him. When he finally came down on the elevator he'd had installed after the accident, he found the housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, arranging flowers in the main entryway. She was a woman in her late 60s who had worked for the Harrison family since before Ryan was born. "Good morning, Mr. Ryan. Have you had breakfast?" She always treated him as if he were still the boy who ran through the halls, not the 38-year-old businessman. "Good morning, Mrs. Gable. Not yet. Has Clara arrived?" The housekeeper raised her eyebrows, surprised. Ryan rarely asked about specific employees. "Yes, she has. She's cleaning the library at the moment. Shall I call her?" "No need. I'll go to her." Ryan guided his chair through the familiar hallways. The Harrison estate was a 19th century mansion, restored and modernized over the years but retaining its Gilded Age charm. Wide plank floors, thick stone walls, enormous windows that brought in the sea breeze. His family had made a fortune buying, renovating and selling historic properties along the New England coast, but this house was never for sale. It was the heart of the empire. The library was on the second floor, now accessible by a platform lift that Ryan hated using but was necessary. When he arrived, he found Clara on her knees wiping down the lower bookshelves. She wore the same simple uniform as always, her hair pulled back in a practical bun. Hearing him enter, she stood up quickly, her hands trembling slightly. "Mr. Harrison, you wanted to speak with me." Ryan noticed the fear in her eyes and felt a pang of guilt. What kind of boss had he been for his employees to be so afraid of a simple conversation? "Clara, please sit down." He pointed to one of the leather armchairs near the window. "You don't need to be nervous. You've done nothing wrong. Quite the opposite." She sat on the edge of the chair, her back straight, her hands clasped in her lap. Ryan positioned his chair to face her. "How long have you worked here?" 6 years, sir. Ever since I came to Newport from Fall River." "And Helena? How old is she?" 4. She'll be 5 in March." Clara swallowed hard. "Sir, I want to apologize again for what happened last night. She never should have left the kitchen, let alone bothered you in front of all those." "Clara," Ryan interrupted her gently, "your daughter didn't bother me. She gave me the best gift I've received in a very long time. She reminded me of something I had forgotten." The woman blinked, confused. "What's that, sir?" "That I'm still alive." The silence that followed was filled only by the distant sound of waves crashing against the rocks on the shore. Ryan looked out the window, gathering the courage to ask the question that really mattered. "Where do you two live?" "On the West End, sir, the other side of town. I take 2 buses to get here." The West End. Ryan knew the neighborhood. Simple houses, unpaved streets, families living on the bare minimum. The trip from there to the estate must have taken over an hour each way. "And Helena's father?" Clara looked down. "He left when he found out I was pregnant, said he wasn't ready to be a father. I never saw him again." Ryan felt a surge of anger for a man he'd never met. How could anyone abandon a child like Helena? It must be hard, taking care of her alone, working, dealing with everything. "We manage, sir. I have a neighbor who watches her while I'm here. She's a good woman, but she's old, and Helena is a handful." For the first time, Clara smiled, a small but genuine smile. She has endless energy, loves music, dancing, making up stories. I noticed. Ryan smiled too, remembering the little girl spinning across the ballroom floor. "Clara, I'm going to make you a proposal, and I want you to think it over carefully before you answer, okay?" She nodded, tense again. This mansion has 22 bedrooms. Currently, I'm the only one living here. It's too big, too empty. Mrs. Gable comes and goes every day, just like you and the other staff. But I'd like to offer a different opportunity for you." Ryan paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'd like for you and Helena to come live here. In the East Wing, there's a full suite that hasn't been used in years. It would be yours. In exchange, you would continue your work, but you would also help manage the house more closely. It would be a position of greater responsibility, with a corresponding raise. And Helena would have a safe place to play. She wouldn't have to stay with neighbors. She could go to a better school nearby." Clara was completely still. Her eyes widened and her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "This isn't charity," Ryan continued quickly. "It's a legitimate job. Offer. You're an exemplary employee. Mrs. Gable always speaks highly of you. And I need more life in this house. I need to remember that it's a home, not just a museum." "Sir, Clara put a hand to her chest. "I don't know what to say. Why would you do this? Because of last night? Because of one dance?" Ryan thought about the question. How could he explain that a 4-year-old girl had done in 5 minutes what months of therapy couldn't? How could he say that for the first time since the accident, he felt his life still had a purpose? "Because your daughter saw me as a person, not as a wheelchair, and because I want to return that kindness in the only way I know how, by giving you both a better opportunity." Clara started to cry. They weren't tears of sadness, but of relief, of hope, of gratitude. "I have my pride, sir, I always have. I've never taken a handout from anyone. I've always worked for what I have." "I know. That's why I'm not offering a handout. I'm offering a job and a home." She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Can I think about it? Talk to Helena. She's little, but I like for her to be part of the big decisions." "Of course. Take all the time you need." Clara stood up, still trembling. She made a move to extend her hand, but seemed to think it was inappropriate. Then, surprisingly, she leaned down and kissed Ryan's forehead. "Thank you, even if I don't accept. Thank you for seeing us as people." After she left, Ryan remained alone in the library, his heart beating fast. He didn't know if Clara would accept. He knew the proposal was unusual, that it might seem strange. But for the first time in a long time, he was doing something that felt right, not just convenient. The next few days were strange. Ryan found himself anxiously awaiting Clara's answer. He saw her working around the house, always efficient, always discreet, but she didn't mention the proposal. He respected her space, didn't pressure her. Meanwhile, he started paying attention to the mansion in a way he hadn't in years. He noticed the cracks in the plaster of the east hallway, the withered flowers in the garden, the dusty portraits of ancestors. He didn't even know. The house was beautiful, but it was slowly dying, just as he had been. A week after the gala, Ryan was in his office reviewing contracts when he heard a light knock on the door. Before he could answer, the door opened and little Helena walked in, followed by a nervous Clara. "I'm sorry, sir, she insisted on coming to talk to you and I couldn't—" "Hi, Mr. Ryan," Helena interrupted, running up to him. "Mommy said you want us to live here. Is it true?" Ryan looked at Clara, who nodded shyly. "Yes, it's true. And can I have my own room with a window?" "You can. A big room with a window and a view of the ocean." Helena's eyes lit up. "And is there a library? Mommy said there are millions of books." Ryan laughed. "Not millions, but there are a lot, and you can read every single one you want." "Then I accept," Helena declared solemnly, holding out her hand to seal the deal. "We're coming to live here," Clara blushed. "Helena, you don't get to decide that by yourself." "But Mommy, you said I could have a say, and my say is yes." The girl looked at Ryan with those huge eyes. "You're nice, and it's sad to be alone in such a big house. We can keep you company." Ryan shook her little hand, feeling a lump in his throat. "I would love to have your company." Clara sighed, but there was a smile on her lips. "Then it's decided. We accept, Mr. Harrison, and I promise you won't regret it." "I'm sure I won't." "And Clara." "Yes, sir?" "You can just call me Ryan. If we're going to be living in the same house, all the formality will feel strange." That night, for the second time in months, Ryan slept peacefully, and for the first time since the accident, he looked forward to tomorrow. The move happened on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Clara arrived at the mansion with 2 worn-out suitcases and a cardboard box full of Helena's toys. It was everything they owned. Ryan watched from the terrace as Mrs. Gable helped them carry the things to the suite in the East Wing, feeling a mix of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction at being able to help, sadness at realizing how little they had. Helena explored every corner of her new room like an adventurer discovering a treasure. Her shouts of joy echoed through the long, silent hallways. "Mommy, Mommy, look, there's a bathtub, a real bathtub, and the bed is giant. 10 Helenas could fit in here." Ryan smiled, hearing the girl's excitement. He had had the room prepared especially for her. Light pink curtains, a small desk for drawing, shelves at just the right height so she could reach the books. They were small details, but important ones. Clara appeared at the office door a few hours later, her eyes red. "Are you okay?" Ryan asked, concerned. "Hi, it's just—" She cleared her throat. "Helena's never had her own room. We always slept together in a twin bed. Seeing her this happy, it's overwhelming." "You deserve this. You deserve so much more." She smiled, still embarrassed by so much kindness. "I came to ask about dinner. What would you like to eat? We can decide together, and I suggest that from now on we all have dinner in the dining room. Me, you, and Helena. Eating alone is depressing." Clara hesitated. "Are you sure? I can serve you and then eat with Helena. In the kitchen. I'm absolutely sure. There are 3 of us living in this house. It makes no sense to eat separately." And so the new routine began. For the first few days, Clara was visibly uncomfortable dining at the mahogany table that seated 12. She ate in silence, her eyes downcast, answering Ryan's questions in monosyllables. But Helena had no such inhibitions. "Ryan, did you know I can count to 100? Want to see? 1, 2, 3, 4... "Helena, don't bother Ryan," Clara would interrupt. "She's not bothering me at all. I'd love to hear." And Ryan really did love it. The girl's chatter filled the empty spaces he had created around himself in recent months. Slowly, Clara began to relax. The conversations during dinner became more natural. Ryan discovered she had a dry, intelligent sense of humor, that she loved to read but rarely had the time, that she dreamed of one day getting a degree in education. "Why education?" he asked one night. "Because I see how education changes lives. Helena goes to a simple public school, but the teachers work miracles with the little they have. I'd like to be like that, to make a difference." "You already make a difference for Helena, for me." She blushed, quickly changing the subject. The weeks passed and the mansion began to come to life. Helena turned the garden into her private park. She ran between the century-old trees, played hide-and-seek with the statues, and made up elaborate stories about princesses who lived there. Ryan started spending more time out of the office. He would join Helena in the garden, telling her stories about the Harrison estate, about his grandparents who built the real estate empire, about the history of Newport. The girl absorbed everything with wide eyes. "And are you going to have kids one day, Ryan?" she asked with the brutal frankness of a child. The question caught him off guard. He was silent for a moment. "I don't know, little Helena. Maybe not." "Why not? You'd be a cool dad. You know how to tell stories and you don't get mad when we ask questions." Ryan felt a tightness in his chest. Before the accident, he and Ashley had talked about having kids. She wanted 3. He wanted as many as came. Now the idea seemed distant, impossible. It's complicated. Grown-ups always say that when they don't want to explain. Helena crossed her arms. "My mum says that too." Ryan laughed despite the melancholy. "You're right. Let me rephrase. I'd like to have kids, but I need to find the right person first, and that's not easy. You could date my mum. She's pretty and she's a good cook." Ryan almost choked. "Helena?" "What? It's true. And she looks at you when she thinks you're not looking." Before Ryan could answer, Clara appeared in the garden. "Helena, bath time, let's go." "Oh, Mom, I was talking to Ryan." "Now." and stop bothering him. As Helena ran inside complaining, Clara turned to Ryan. Sorry, she has no filter. You don't need to apologize. I like talking to her. It's refreshing. Clara nodded, but there was something different in her eyes. Embarrassment, perhaps. Ryan wondered what exactly Helena had said before she arrived. The truth was, Ryan had started to notice Clara in a way he hadn't before. The way she smiled when she thought no one was looking. The care with which she treated every object in the house, even the simplest ones. Her infinite patience with Helena. The quiet strength that emanated from her. She was beautiful, he realized, not in the obvious, polished way of the socialites who frequented his parties. Beautiful in a natural, genuine way. When she tied her hair in a ponytail while cleaning the windows. When she sat with Helena at night to read stories, her soft voice echoing through the halls. When she laughed at some silly thing her daughter said, her eyes crinkling at the corners. Ryan pushed these thoughts away as soon as they appeared. Clara worked for him. There was a power dynamic that made any kind of romantic interest inappropriate, even dangerous. He didn't want her to feel pressured or uncomfortable, not after everything she had already been through, but feelings have a mind of their own and don't obey logic. A month after they moved in, Ryan had to travel to Boston for an important meeting about a new development in the Seaport district. It was just an overnight trip, but for the first time in a long time, he felt reluctant to leave the estate. I'm gonna miss you, Ryan. Helena hugged him as he was leaving. Come back soon. I'll be back tomorrow night, I promise. Clara was more reserved. Have a safe trip. If you need anything, just call. In Boston, the meeting was productive. The investors were excited about the project. But Ryan could barely concentrate. He found himself checking his phone, waiting for messages. When he finally received a picture of Helena in the garden that Clara sent with the caption, "She told me to send you a kiss," he smiled like a fool in the middle of the expensive restaurant where he was dining with his business partners. Everything okay, Harrison? One of the investors asked. Everything's great. Just missing home. Back in Newport the next night, Ryan found the mansion lit up and smelling of chocolate cake. Helena ran to hug him as soon as he came in. You're back, you're back. We made a cake to celebrate. Celebrate what? You coming back, silly. Mommy said the house is too quiet without you. Ryan looked at Clara, who was red from her neck to her ears. I just mentioned that we missed you, that's all, she mumbled. I missed you both too. A lot. The look they exchanged lasted only a few seconds, but it was charged with something new. Something dangerous and exciting at the same time. That night, after Helena was asleep, Ryan and Clara sat talking on the veranda. It was a warm summer evening, the sea breeze carrying the scent of salt and flowers. Can I ask you a personal question? Ryan asked. You can. Do you still believe in love, after everything you went through with Helena's father? Clara was silent for a long moment, looking up at the stars. I do, but I believe real love is rare. It's not that crazy passion that burns out in 3 months. It's partnership, it's respect, it's choosing to stay even when things get hard. She looked at him. What about you? Do you still believe? Ryan thought of Ashley, of the way she had abandoned him, of all the women who had rejected him afterward. I'm starting to believe again. Slowly. Because of Helena? Because of both of you. The silence that followed was comfortable, but also heavy with unspoken possibilities. Ryan knew he was falling in love, not with the romantic idea of saving someone, but with the real woman in front of him, for her strength, her kindness, her intelligence. But he was scared. Scared of messing everything up. Scared she would only accept him out of gratitude. Scared of being rejected again. For now he decided he would be patient. He would continue to be a friend, a fair employer, a pleasant companion, and he would wait to see where this would lead them. What Ryan didn't know was that Clara was struggling with very similar feelings, and that they were both about to discover that sometimes love arrives when we least expect it, and in the most unlikely way possible. 3 months after Clara and Helena moved into the mansion, Ryan's life had completely changed. He woke up, early not because he had appointments, but because he wanted to have breakfast with Helena before she went to school. He took a renewed interest in the family business, actively participating in meetings, proposing new projects. His partners commented that he seemed like a different person. "You're different, Ryan," his cousin Tyler said during a video conference. "Lighter. What happened?" Ryan looked out his office window and saw Helena playing in the garden with Clara. They were both laughing at something he couldn't hear. "I remembered to live instead of just exist." But not everything was simple. The more time he spent with Clara, the harder it became to pretend his feelings were just friendship or gratitude. He found himself watching her when she wasn't looking. He noticed the little details, like the way she bit her lower lip when she was concentrating, or how she hummed softly while arranging the flowers. Clara seemed different too, more relaxed, more open. She had started sharing more about her life, her dreams. She revealed that she liked to write poetry in the few free hours she had, that she dreamed of traveling across the country, seeing other historic cities besides Newport. "Why, don't you travel?" Ryan asked one afternoon. "With what money and time and Helena?" She laughed, but there was a sadness in her laugh. "Dreaming is free, but making it happen is expensive. What if I gave you a week of vacation, paid? You could go wherever you wanted." Clara shook her head. "I can't accept that. You've already done too much for us. This isn't about duty or favors. It's about you deserving good things." She looked into his eyes, and for a moment Ryan was sure she felt the same way he did. But then Clara looked away. "Maybe one day, when Helena is older." The tension between them grew with each passing day, small accidental touches that lasted a second longer than they should have, glances that said more than words, silences heavy with unsaid things. Helena, with her frighteningly sharp childhood perception, noticed. "Why do you guys look at each other and then stop when I see you?" she asked during dinner. Ryan almost spit out the water he was drinking. Clara turned bright red. "We don't look at each other," she began. "Yes, you do. I've seen you lots of times. It's just like in the movies Mrs. Gable watches, when people like each other." "Helena, please." Clara was mortified. Ryan decided to intervene. "Little Helena, sometimes adults need time to understand what they're feeling. It's more complicated than in the movies." The girl thought for a moment. "But you like each other, right? So why don't you just get together already?" "Because—" Ryan searched for the right words. "Because your mom works for me, and I don't want her to feel pressured into anything." Helena turned to Clara. "Do you feel pressured, Mum?" "No, this isn't a conversation for now, Helena. It's always not a conversation for now. I'm almost 5. I'm a big girl." Despite the embarrassment, Ryan couldn't help but smile. The girl had a point. After putting Helena to bed, Clara returned to the living room. Ryan was on the veranda, looking at the dark sea under the moonlight. "Sorry about Helena. She doesn't have a sense of boundaries sometimes." "She's right, you know," Ryan said without turning around, "about me liking you." The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan immediately regretted it. He had gone too far, too fast. "Ryan." Clara's voice was soft. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Please forget it. I don't want to make you uncomfortable or... I like you too." Ryan spun his chair around so fast he almost knocked over the glass of wine on the small table beside him. Clara was standing in the doorway to the veranda, her arms crossed, her eyes shining. "I tried not to. I tried to remember that you're my boss, that there's a huge class difference between us, that you're a Harrison and I'm a housekeeper. But it didn't work." "You're not just a housekeeper, you're..." "What?" She stepped closer. "What am I, Ryan?" "You're the most incredible person I've ever met. You're strong, smart, dedicated. You're the best mother Helena could ever have. And He swallowed hard. "I'm falling in love with you. Maybe I'm already completely in love." Clara closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. "This is crazy. People will talk. They'll say I took advantage of you, that I'm a gold digger. I don't care what people say. But I do." She opened her eyes. "I have my pride, Ryan. I've worked my whole life to never owe anyone anything. To raise Helena with dignity. If I get with you, they'll think it was for the money. And anyone who thinks that doesn't deserve our attention. Easy for you to say. You're a Harrison. I'm Clara who cleans floors. Ryan felt anger, but not at her, at the world that had made her believe she was worth less because of where she was born or what she did for a living. You're worth more than any of the elite who frequent this house, more than me, certainly. Don't say that. It's true. You raised an incredible child on your own. You worked hard without ever losing your kindness. You have dreams, poetry, love to give. While He laughed bitterly. I spent a year drowning in self-pity because I couldn't walk anymore. Clara knelt beside his chair, taking his hands. You went through a terrible trauma. You had every right to feel lost. But you found me. You too found me. She squeezed his hands, tears beginning to fall. I'm scared, Ryan. Scared of messing this up. Scared that this won't work out, and I'll lose not just you, but this home we've built. Helena loves you. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. You can't promise that. I can't, but I can promise that I will try with everything I have, and that no matter what happens between us, Helena will always have a place here. You both always will. Clara sobbed, and Ryan pulled her into his arms. She buried her face in his shoulder, and he felt her tears soaking his shirt. I'm in love with you, she admitted in a low voice, and it terrifies me. It terrifies me too, but maybe we can be terrified together. She laughed through her tears, and the sound was the most beautiful thing Ryan had ever heard. When they finally pulled apart, Clara's eyes were red, but there was a smile on her lips. So what do we do now? I think we can take it slow. We don't have to announce anything, just see where this takes us. No pressure. No pressure. Just the two of us, being honest with each other. Clara nodded. And Helena? Helena already knows everything, apparently. She's smarter than both of us put together. They laughed, and the tension finally began to dissipate. That night, Ryan slept with a heart lighter than it had been in years. For the first time, since the accident, he allowed himself to imagine a future that included not just surviving, but living fully. A future with laughter echoing through the halls, with family dinners, with love. In the following days, the dynamic between them subtly changed. There were no dramatic kisses or grand declarations, but there were small gestures, hands that touched when passing dishes at dinner, glances that lingered a little longer, smiles that said more than words. Helena noticed, of course. Are you guys dating now? She asked with the subtlety of a bulldozer. We're getting to know each other better, Clara answered, diplomatically. That's grown-up talk for dating, Helena declared. It's okay, I approve, but I want to be the flower girl at the wedding. Helena! Clara exclaimed, but she was laughing. Ryan was laughing too, but inside his heart was racing. Wedding. The word was no longer impossible. Now it was just in the future. Maybe. 2 weeks after their confession on the veranda, something happened that changed everything again. Ryan was in his office when he got a call from Ashley, his ex-fiancée. He hadn't spoken to her since the day she returned the ring. Hi, Ryan. I know this. It's weird me calling, but I need to talk to you in person. Ryan's heart jumped, but not with hope, with apprehension. About what? About us. About everything. Please, just for coffee. I made a terrible mistake. Ryan looked out the window and saw Clara and Helena in the garden, planting flowers, his new family, his new life. Ashley, whatever was between us ended over a year ago. I know, but I need to see you. Please, just one conversation. Against his better judgment, Ryan agreed. They would meet the next day at a coffee shop in Newport's historic downtown. When he hung up the phone, he found Clara standing in the office doorway. From her expression, she had overheard the conversation. Was that your ex-fiancée? She asked calmly. Ryan nodded. She wants to talk. I'm not sure what about exactly. Clara bit her lip, clearly bothered but trying not to show it. Are you going? I am, just to close that chapter for good. But Clara, you need to know that. You don't have to explain. I trust you. But there was doubt in her eyes. and Ryan realized that the ghost of Ashley still haunted them, even after all this time. Ryan arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. It was a charming place in the historic district, with tables on the cobblestone sidewalk and a view of Trinity Church. He ordered a coffee and waited, trying to calm his nerves. Ashley arrived right on time. She looked different, Ryan noticed. Thinner, with faint dark circles under her flawless makeup. Her blonde hair was shorter, in a trendy cut that didn't suit her. She wore a navy blue dress and heels that seemed too expensive for a simple coffee. "Hi, Ryan." She sat down, nervous. "Thanks for coming." "Ashley." He nodded, keeping his voice neutral. "You said you needed to talk." She fidgeted with her purse, taking things out and putting them back in for no reason. A nervous tic Ryan knew well. I don't know where to start. This is harder than I imagined." "The beginning usually works." She took a deep breath. "I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. When I left you at the hospital, when I gave back the ring, I was scared, terrified. We were getting married in 3 months, we had our whole life planned, and suddenly everything changed. I panicked." Ryan took a sip of his coffee, waiting. He knew there was more. "My mother didn't help. She was in my ear, saying I was too young to take on a responsibility like that your life would be complicated, that I deserved more. And I listened to her, I believed her." Ashley wiped away a tear that was starting to fall. "But I was wrong. About everything. Ashley, let me finish, please." She took his hand across the table. Ryan didn't pull away, but he didn't return the touch either. "I love you, Ryan. I never stopped. I tried to move on. I dated other men, but none of them were you. None of them knew me like you did. And I realized I made the mistake of my life by abandoning you when you needed me most." Ryan gently withdrew his hand. "Why are you telling me this now, after more than a year?" "Because I finally got the courage, and because I heard you're doing well, that you're socializing again, that you're different. And I thought that maybe, just maybe, you could give me a second chance to start over." Ryan was silent for a long moment, processing. A part of him, the part that still held a grudge, wanted to say harsh words, to remind her of the pain she caused, the humiliation. But he had changed. He was no longer that bitter man. "Ashley, I forgive you. I really do. You were scared, you reacted badly, but I get it. It was a difficult time for everyone." Her eyes lit up with hope. "So you'll—" "But no, we're not starting over." The hope died as quickly as it had appeared. "Ryan, please, I've changed, I've matured. I know I was selfish, but now, it's not about whether you've changed or not. It's about me having changed, about my life being completely different now." "Different how?" Ryan hesitated. He wasn't ready to talk about Clara, not to Ashley, but he wasn't going to lie either. "I've found happiness, real happiness, the kind that doesn't depend on walking or not, on being perfect or not. And I found it with people who accept me exactly as I am." Ashley turned pale. "You're with someone." "I am, or at least I'm trying to be, and she's incredible." "Who is she? Do I know her?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is that you deserve to find someone who makes you happy too, but that person isn't me. Not anymore." Ashley started to cry for real now, not caring about her running makeup. "I ruined everything. I ruined the best thing I ever had." Ryan felt sorry for her, but not the kind of pity that makes someone go back. It was the pity you feel for someone who made a bad decision and now has to live with the consequences. "You'll be okay, Ash. You'll find someone who's right for you, but you need to stop looking back." She nodded through her sobs, grabbing a napkin to wipe her face. "She's very lucky. I hope she knows that." "Actually, I'm the lucky one." When Ryan got back to the estate, he found Clara in the kitchen preparing lunch. Helena was at school. They were alone. "How did it go?" she asked without looking at him, focused on chopping vegetables. "It was liberating." Now she looked up. She wanted to get back together, to ask for a second chance. Clara stopped chopping, the knife suspended in mid-air. "And you? What did you say?" "Ryan, I guided his chair over to her. "I said no, that my life has changed, that I've changed, and that I've found someone who makes me truly happy." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Ryan, were you afraid I'd go back to her?" "I was terrified. She's beautiful. From your social class, she has a history with you, and you're the woman I'm falling in love with. The woman who makes me want to be better. The mother of the most incredible child in the world." He took her hand. "Ashley is the past. You are the present and the future." Clara dropped the knife and knelt beside his chair, just as she had weeks ago. But this time she didn't hesitate. She leaned in and kissed him. It was a soft kiss, almost shy at first, but it was filled with everything they hadn't said, all the fear, all the hope, all the love they had been building brick by brick. When they pulled apart, they were both smiling. Finally, Helena's voice made them jump. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, her backpack still on. "I can't believe you guys finally kissed and I missed it. Helena, weren't you at school?" Clara was beet red. "I was, but my teacher got sick and they sent everyone home early. Paul brought me." She dropped her backpack and ran to hug them both. "You're really dating now, right?" Ryan laughed. "I think so, little Helena." "So are you going to be my dad?" The question took Ryan by surprise. Clara tensed. "Helena, that's not how it works," she began. But Ryan interrupted her. "I would love to be your dad, Helena, if you'll have me." The girl hugged him so tightly she almost knocked him out of his chair. I'll have you. Now I have a real family." Clara was crying and laughing at the same time, and Ryan felt his heart was so full he thought it might burst. But their happiness would be tested, because 3 days later, at Helena's 5th birthday party held at the mansion, Ashley showed up uninvited. The party was beautiful. Clara had decorated the garden with colorful balloons. There was a table full of snacks and cake, and 15 kids from Helena's school were running around on the lawn. Mrs. Gable was playing upbeat music on the stereo, and Ryan was enjoying watching Helena and her friends play. Then Ashley appeared at the gate. She wore a white summer dress and sunglasses that didn't completely hide her swollen eyes. In her hand, she carried a gift wrapped in pink paper. "Hi, Ryan. I know I wasn't invited, but I heard about the party and wanted to bring a gift for Helena. I know she's important to you." Clara, who was serving cake, froze when she saw Ashley. The other mothers from the school started whispering. Everyone in Newport knew the story of Ryan and Ashley. Ryan guided his chair to the gate. "Ashley, what are you doing here?" "Please, I just want to give her the gift and leave. I promise I won't cause any trouble." Before Ryan could answer, Helena came running up. "Who are you?" she asked with the frankness of a child. "I'm an old friend of Ryan's. I brought you a present. Happy birthday." Helena took the gift, curious, but looked to Ryan for permission. "You can open it, Helena." It was an expensive doll, the kind Helena had always wanted, but Clara could never afford. The girl's eyes lit up. "Wow, thank you, lady." Ashley smiled, but it was a sad smile. "You're welcome. Take good care of Ryan, okay? He's special." Then she turned and left, leaving Ryan confused and Clara visibly shaken. The party continued, but the joy had dimmed a little. When everyone had gone home and Helena was asleep, exhausted from playing, Ryan and Clara finally talked. "She still loves you," Clara said quietly. "But I don't love her anymore. I love you. She can offer you things I can't. A life without complications, social acceptance." "Clara, stop. You're talking as if I would choose social status over real love. But people will always judge us. They'll say I climbed the social ladder on your back, that I took advantage of you." Ryan took her face in his hands. "Then let them talk. I don't live for other people. I live for me, for you, for Helena. And anyone who doesn't accept that can get out of my life." Clara kissed him, and in that kiss there was gratitude, love, and a silent promise. But neither of them noticed Helena standing on the stairs, watching. The little girl had heard everything. And in her 5-year-old mind she was forming a plan to make sure no one ever broke up her new family. A year had passed since the night of the charity gala that changed everything. The Harrison estate was once again prepared for a party, but this time it was something much more intimate and special. Ryan had planned a dinner to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Clara and Helena moving into the mansion, just the 3 of them, a family. The table was set on the veranda overlooking the sea. Floating candles created a magical atmosphere, and Mrs. Gable had prepared everyone's favorite dishes. Helena was ecstatic in her new dress, a gift from Ryan, and wouldn't stop spinning to watch the full skirt fly out. "Do I look like a princess, Ryan?" she asked for the 10th time. "You look like the most beautiful princess in Newport," he answered, also for the 10th time, never tiring of the question. Clara came down the stairs and Ryan felt his heart skip a beat. She wore a simple navy blue dress, her hair down and falling over her shoulders. There was no jewelry, no heavy makeup, no artifice. Just her, naturally beautiful. "Wow, Mom, you look beautiful," Helena exclaimed. "You look perfect," Ryan agreed, holding out his hand. The dinner was perfect. They talked about the past year, the changes, the special moments. Helena told them about her ballet classes, which she had started 3 months ago, thanks to Ryan. Clara talked about the online education course she was taking, also supported by him. "I never thought my life could be like this," Clara said softly, her eyes shining. "A year ago, I was cleaning this floor, dreaming of a better life for Helena. I never imagined I would find it here with you." "Life has a funny way of surprising us," Ryan said. "I was convinced my life was over after that accident, that I would never be happy again. And then a 4-year-old girl asked me to dance." Helena, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly stood up. "Speaking of dancing, Ryan, can you dance with me again? Like that night?" Ryan smiled. "Of course I can, little Helena." They went to the open area of the veranda. Mrs. Gable, who was watching from a distance with a smile on her face, put on some soft music. Helena began to spin just as she had a year ago, but now her movements were more graceful, a result of her ballet classes. Ryan followed her with his chair, and the 2 of them twirled under the stars. When the music ended, Helena turned to Clara. "Now it's your turn, Mom." Clara hesitated, as she always did. "Helena, I don't know." But Ryan was already holding out his hand. "You once taught me that dancing is a matter of the heart, not the legs. Come dance with me, Clara." She took his hand, her eyes welling up. Ryan pulled her close, and they began to move gently. It wasn't a technical dance, but it was theirs. He guided the chair while she moved beside him, their hands intertwined, their bodies close. "I love you," Ryan whispered. "I love you too." And then, under the emotional gaze of Helena and Mrs. Gable, they kissed. A long, sweet kiss, full of promises. When they pulled apart, Helena was clapping and jumping up and down. "Does this mean you're getting married?" she asked hopefully. Ryan looked at Clara, who was blushing and laughing. "Helena, that's something that—" "Yes," Ryan interrupted her. "Yes, we're getting married, if your mother will have me." Clara gasped. "Ryan, you can't just—" He took a small box from his pocket. He had planned to do this later, away from prying eyes, but the moment felt too perfect to ignore. "Clara, you saved me when I thought there was no salvation. You showed me that life is worth living, no matter the circumstances. You and Helena brought light into this empty house. You made me remember that I'm more than my legs, more than my last name, more than my bank account, and I want to spend the rest of my life paying that back. Will you marry me?" Clara was crying openly now. She looked at Helena, who was nodding frantically, encouraging her to accept. But what about people? What will they say? Let them say whatever they want. You are my choice, my love, my family. She held out her trembling hand, and Ryan placed the ring on her finger, a white gold band with a small diamond. Simple, but elegant, just like her. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Helena screamed with joy and jumped into both of their arms, creating a tangle of hugs, kisses, and happy tears. Mrs. Gable was crying too, wiping her eyes on her apron. The wedding was set for 6 months later. Clara wanted something small and intimate, and Ryan respected her wish. Only 30 guests, mostly staff from the mansion who had become friends, a few of Clara's relatives who came from Fall River, and his cousin Tyler, who was the only one of Ryan's relatives who truly supported the relationship. The ceremony took place in the mansion's garden, in the same spot where Helena played every day. Helena was the flower girl, as she had demanded from the beginning, wearing a pink dress that made her look like she had stepped out of a fairy tale. When Clara appeared walking through the garden, Ryan felt tears stream down his face. She wore a simple white dress, with no veil or frills, just flowers in her hair, and she was radiant. During the vows, Ryan turned to Helena. "Helena, you're the one who started all of this, when you had the courage to ask me to dance when everyone else just saw a man in a wheelchair, and today I want to make a promise to you too." He took her little hand. "I promise to be the best father I can possibly be, to protect you, to support your dreams, and to always be here when you need me. Will you have me?" Helena was crying, a rare sight for the always cheerful girl. "I'll have you, and I promise to be the best daughter too." There wasn't a dry eye at the ceremony. 2 years after the wedding, Ryan was in the garden watching Clara and Helena plant a new rose bush. The afternoon summer sun cast a golden glow on everything, creating a scene so perfect it looked like a painting. Clara was 6 months pregnant, a girl whom they had decided to name Aurora. Helena was thrilled at the idea of being a big sister and had already decorated half the baby's room with her drawings. Ryan thought about everything that had happened since that night at the gala, the accident that had almost destroyed him, the rejections that made him believe he was less of a person for being in a wheelchair, the isolation, the bitterness, the feeling that his life had ended at 36. And then, a 4-year-old girl in a simple red dress changed everything. He thought of Ashley, who had finally moved on and married a doctor in Boston. They had run into each other once after Ryan's wedding, and she had said something he would never forget. "I lost you because I was looking for perfection. You found love because you accepted imperfection, yours and hers. I think that's the difference between people who find happiness and people who spend their lives searching for it." Clara came over, interrupting his thoughts. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, sitting on the bench next to his wheelchair. "About how lucky I am. You always say that." "Because it's always true." He took her hand, stroking her rounded belly with the other. "A few years ago I was a rich but miserable man. I had everything and nothing, and you showed me that true wealth isn't in houses or money. It's in love," Clara completed, resting her head on his shoulder, "and in family, and in second chances, and in brave little girls who aren't afraid to reach out to sad strangers at parties." Helena ran up to them, covered in dirt. "Look, the roses we planted last month are starting to grow. It's going to be so pretty when Aurora is born. She'll have a garden full of flowers." Ryan looked at his family, the woman he loved, the daughter he chose, and the baby on the way. He thought of all the paths his life could have taken, all the what-ifs that had haunted him for so long. What if he hadn't survived the crash? What if Ashley hadn't left? What if Helena hadn't shown up at that party? What if Clara had refused his proposal? But none of those what-ifs mattered anymore, because the only path that mattered was the one that had brought him here. To this perfect moment, under the Newport sun, surrounded by people who loved him not in spite of his limitations, but including them as part of who he was. Ryan Harrison had learned the most important lesson of his life, that a man's worth isn't in his ability to walk, in his bank account, or in his last name. It's in his capacity to love, to be loved, and to recognize that sometimes the greatest blessings come in the most unlikely packages. Like a 4-year-old girl in a red dress, asking a stranger in a wheelchair for a dance. That night, after putting Helena to bed, Ryan and Clara stood on the veranda looking at the stars, the same veranda where they had confessed their feelings for each other, where it all truly began. "Do you have any regrets?" Ryan asked suddenly. "About accepting that proposal? About moving in here? About marrying me?" Clara turned to him, surprised. How can you even ask that? Because your life could have been easier, without people's judgment, without having to deal with my wheelchair, without... She cut him off with a kiss. My life is perfect, not because it's easy, but because it's ours. Because I wake up every day next to the man I love. Because my daughter has a wonderful father. Because I'm creating another life inside me. This is more than I ever dreamed of having. I love you so much it sometimes hurts. I know. Me too. They stood in silence, just enjoying each other's presence under the starry sky, and Ryan realized he was finally at peace. Not because his life was perfect, or because all his problems had disappeared, but because he had learned that perfection isn't the absence of problems. It's accepting that problems are part of life and choosing to be happy anyway. It's finding someone who will dance with you, even when you can't stand up. It's having a family that loves you not for what you can give, but for who you are. It's recognizing that sometimes we lose some things to gain others that are infinitely better. Ryan Harrison lost the ability to walk, but he gained the ability to truly live, and that was a trade he wouldn't make for anything in the world. The end. If the journey of Ryan, Clara, and Helena touched your heart, we have many other emotional stories that celebrate the power of true love, family, and second chances. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of these narratives that will make you believe it's never too late to start over and that true love sees far beyond appearances. Leave a like if you also believe that happiness is found in the little things and sincere gestures. And in the comments, tell us, have you ever had a second chance in life? Have you ever met someone who completely changed your perspective? Share your story with us. After all, we all have a story of love and resilience to tell.